Hello everyone and welcome to Office Hours for October 2021. This month's topic is going to be Oracle DataSafe and in particular continuous assessment with Oracle DataSafe. Just a few announcements before we get started with today's topic. First announcement is that we've started a new LinkedIn group called Database Security Tigers. Our goal with this group is to give you a place to share information about database security. That could be solutions, it could be recommendations, it's a place to ask questions. We're interested in seeing what it grows into. So if you're interested in database security, please join this LinkedIn group. You see the URL on your screen now. For those of you using Oracle DataSafe with your on-premises database, if you are using the on-premises connector, you're going to be seeing a notification that you should download an updated installation bundle for your on-premises connector. This is going to be pretty easy. You're going to download the new bundle, stop your old connector, and just reinstall the bundle. The reason for this is we've made a change to how we're handling certificates, and we want to make sure that if a certificate expires, that is handled gracefully with no outage for your DataSafe connection. We've added a new Database Security Live Lab this month. The new lab is called Database Vault, Oracle's best kept secret, and it gives you a chance to play around with Database Vault on Autonomous Database. You'll find that this is different from the other Database Vault labs because on Autonomous Database you enable the Database Vault slightly differently. And the paradigms are a little different, but you still get to play around with the basic Database Vault use cases of separation of duties, protecting sensitive objects from administrator access, using simulation mode and auditing. It's just a real good look into Database Vault, and it only takes about 30-35 minutes to do, and best of all, it'll even run in a free trial account. So if you haven't played with Database Vault much or with Database Vault on Autonomous Database, this might be something you want to take a look at. Oracle Database World is fast approaching. We'll have 3 different sessions for Oracle Database World this year, 26th through the 27th. That's really intended for North America and will be an hour's convenient for North America. November 2nd through 3rd. This is intended for EMEA. It'll be a little early for North America, but still usable and possibly usable for some people in Asia Pacific region. And then December 1st and 2nd, which will be for our customers in the Asia Pacific region. This, unlike Open World, Database World is open to everyone. There's no charge to attend. We've got a couple of really good security sessions, one of them on ransomware, another one on Oracle DataSafe. We've got the hands-on lab, which is the live lab that I just talked about on the last slide, Oracle Database Vault, Oracle's best kept secret. If you get a chance, join us for that, because in addition to just doing the lab, you'll get a little bit more commentary on what's going on. We're also trying for the October 26th and 27th session, we'll be doing the labs in both English and Spanish, and for the November 2nd to 3rd, we'll be doing English and French. So if you speak Spanish or French and would prefer to do the lab in that language, this is really our first attempt at doing them bilingual. During the Database World, we'll also have several on-demand sessions covering a wide variety of topics, everything from auditing to Key Vault and gradual password rollover. URL for Database World is on the screen. Hope to see you there. We released Oracle Key Vault 21.3 this week. This update to Key Vault includes an improvement to hardware security module integration. Basically what we've done is we have created the ability for any HSM vendor that is PKCS 11 compliant to quickly certify their hardware security module with Key Vault and provide their customers a pre-validated configuration. Prior to this, we had a very limited group of HSMs that we covered, the Talus Lunas, the old nCipher, now nTrust nShields, and the Utamako servers. But with this new paradigm, the field opens up much wider as you begin to see more proliferation in the HSM market. We've also done some things in this update to improve manageability. We've automated integration with Audit Vault and Database Firewall so that the audit trail from your Key Vault is a lot easier to include in Audit Vault. You could do this before, it just required more manual steps. We have included alerts when you start to fall low on fast recovery space, and we've made it much more obvious in the UI when one of your Key Vault nodes switches from read-write to read-only mode. That'll now be much more visible for you. And finally, we've added support for SUSE Linux for endpoints. As you start to see more and more databases deployed on SUSE Linux, this just opens that up for using Key Vault. There's a lot more, especially in terms of REST APIs. Take a look in the What's New section for each of the Key Vault guides for full details. That's it for announcements. Let's go ahead and get to today's technical topic, which is changes in the assessment portion of Oracle DataSafe. As you may be aware, we announced DataSafe at Open World in 2019, the last Open World before COVID started. And DataSafe originally was targeted at improving and enhancing the security for autonomous databases. Since then, we have increased the scope of DataSafe so that it works with Oracle databases wherever they're installed. When I say wherever they're installed, I really mean that. It can be on-premises, it can be in the Oracle Cloud, it can be in Oracle Cloud at Customer, it can be running on EC2 and Amazon services, or it could be on Azure. Wherever your Oracle databases are, you can provide those 5 key services from DataSafe, which are security risk assessment, looking at your configuration, user risk assessment, looking at the database accounts, activity auditing, including collecting and reporting on audit data and provisioning audit policies, sensitive data discovery, and sensitive data masking. DataSafe plays a critical role in the maximum security architecture, supplementing the built-in options to the database like transparent data encryption and database vault, and allowing you to really complete the security picture for your database. DataSafe is actively developed. We're on basically 2-week sprints, so you get new features every couple of weeks. And because of that, DataSafe moves very, very quickly. Now, one project that we've been working on for most of 2021 is an update to the console for DataSafe, the user interface, which we introduced in 2019, really before Oracle Cloud had moved to Generation 2. And we are bringing that console into the Generation 2 framework and paradigm. This project involves 4 distinct steps. The first part was preparatory. We needed to move from a DataSafe unique security concept called resource groups to the more standard OCI compartments. Databases are grouped into OCI compartments, and in this new paradigm, the access to information about databases in DataSafe is controlled by your permissions for an OCI compartment. That was done earlier this year. The next step, phase 1 of the actual UI migration, was to move the registration of databases with DataSafe out of the DataSafe console, that legacy console, into the new OCI console. This is where we were able to add in registration wizards that greatly simplify your registration of new databases with DataSafe. Now we come to the third step, phase 2, which is moving the security assessment and user assessment functionality in DataSafe out of the legacy console into the OCI native console. And that's what we'll be talking about today. If you'd like more information about phase 1, the target databases and the registration wizards, you might want to take a look at July's Office Hours session. You can find that in the Office Hours archive on the Ask Tom website. Let's take a look at what we've got with phase 2. And again, just a reminder, that's security assessment and user assessment. Right now, DataSafe functionality is split between 2 consoles. Security assessment and user assessment have moved to the new OCI native console, and you'll see them in Security Center. Data discovery, data masking, and activity auditing, you'll notice have a little arrow indicating an exit. When you click those, you will return to the legacy console. Those 3 functionalities will move into the OCI native console in the next and final phase of the project. As we move functions from the old console to the new, you will immediately begin to see new benefits from the console. One of those for security assessment is that we now expose what we call a fleet view, or your risk summary. In this view, you are able to look at a particular risk and identify across your database estate where does that risk apply. Contrast this with the target view, which is what we had in the old console and still have as we move to target summary in the new console, where you have, for a particular database, all risks. So you can now look at it both, if you will, horizontally and vertically and get a real 360-degree view of your database security. The concept of the fleet view also applies to user assessment. If you move into the risk summary in user assessment, you'll be able to click into, for example, critical risk and see across your database estate where do you have users with a level of privileges that would represent a critical risk if that user were compromised. One of the requests we receive frequently is the ability in user assessment to set a baseline and detect drift away from that baseline for user creation, roles, and grants. And we've added that with this move to OCI native console. So now in user assessment, you'll be able to assess your current state of user privileges against a baseline. Something else we've added with this move to the OCI native console is in user assessment, we don't just track role grants and system privileges, we now also track object grants. And so as you drill into user details, you'll be able to see both system and object privilege grants. Let's take a look at the new console and how these features are implemented. First, we'll go ahead and go to the new Security Center. To get there, we'll go to the main menu, we'll go to Oracle Database, and under Data Safe, we'll click Security Center. When we log into Security Center, what we'll see is that security and user assessment are now native within the Oracle Cloud interface, and data discovery, data masking, and activity auditing both have an exit to the legacy console. We start in security assessment and we're initially in Fleet View. In Fleet View, we can go in and pick a risk. Let's look at a medium risk, maybe accounts are not locking after a certain number of failed logins, and we can see all of the databases where this risk applies to. If we go back to security assessment, we can choose to go to target view, which is the traditional view for DataSafe, and here we can see for each individual database when was the last report done, and we can view that report, seeing all of the different risks that are appropriate to this database. So again, we get the fleet view, risks across all database, and the target view, all risks for a particular database. We also now are able to see the comparison of current state with our baseline. Once we have a database set up the way we want it to, we set that as baseline. And then whenever we run an assessment, we can compare that with the baseline. Right now, my system is at baseline. Let's take a look at what that is. Well, we can see assessment is identical with baseline. Let's go back and look at user assessment. User assessment also has the fleet view. We can go in and see where are my high-risk users, for example, and we can see that these are the high-risk users we have across all of our databases. We can drill in and we can see individual targets and what those users are. So here, for example, is the report of the users that are in my target database. And we can see for any individual user, well, what roles do they have? What privileges do they have? But user assessment now also has a baseline feature similar to what security assessment has had for a while. Currently, we see no deviations from our baseline for the databases that we're working with. Let's go ahead and cause a deviation, and just for the sake of time, I'm going to pick something that will cause a deviation for both security assessment and user assessment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a user, we'll create a user called hello. We will grant select any table to hello. And this wasn't there when I ran my last baseline, so we'll go in to the database I just connected to, and we'll say, let's refresh our user assessment. We'll tell it, hello. Okay, and let's do the same thing for security assessment. It takes my user assessment about 1.5 minutes to update. Same thing for my security assessment, so we'll just fire them both off at the same time. And so we'll say refresh now. And again, this will take about 1 minute, 1.5 minutes to do. Let's wait for this to complete. And now we can see that our assessment has completed. And if we go back and we check in our target view, we'll see that this particular database now deviates from baseline. If we go in to look at our report, we can compare with baseline. This will take a few seconds to create the report that shows the difference between what we currently have and what was in the baseline. And what we can see is, sure enough, someone has created a user called hello. When I created that user, I didn't assign a minimum lock time. I didn't assign a password verification function. I didn't do anything I should have. And to top it off, I gave this hello person the ability to select any table. Now, this is something DataSafe has been doing for a long time. Security baseline. Here's the new piece. We'll go into user assessment. We'll go to target summary. And sure enough, we also differ from baseline here. Let's take a look at this report, and we'll compare with baseline. Here again, it takes about 45 seconds or so for this to come up and show me what it needs to show me. And we can see that's completed, and sure enough, there's a new user hello. That new user has a critical level of risk. If we drill down into that user, we can see this user has a critical level of risk, and what's changed is that this user not only exists where it didn't before, but also it has the select any table. That is what's changed in DataSafe. But wait, there's a little bit more. Let's take a look and see what happened. It just so happens that I got a notification, and my notification says that there has been user assessment drift from baseline in my compartment for that particular database. There has also been security assessment drift from baseline in my compartment for this particular database. We now have email notifications for drift away from baseline. Let me show you how that works. It starts by going to Developer Services, selecting Notifications, and we'll create a new topic. The topic I created was DataSafe Alert. And in DataSafe Alert, we can see this is just something I've created. It has no real meaning other than I created a subscription that says when this notification is called, send an email to my address. I also went under Observability and Manageability to the Event Service, and I added a rule. And that rule says if there is security drift, let's just edit the rule, if for the service DataSafe there is security assessment drift from DataSafe, then call the notification DataSafe Alert. We had that same rule for user baseline drift. And that's all it takes. So now we have email notifications when there is a drift away from our baseline. Let's take another look at email notifications. What I just demonstrated was that setting up an email notification requires 3 steps. You'll first create a notification topic. Within that notification topic, you will create an email subscription, and finally you'll create an event rule that calls the notification topic. You can find notifications either under Developer Services or just search for notifications in the search bar. Once there, click Create, name the topic whatever you want. Click on Subscriptions and create a subscription. I selected email and gave my email address for the subscription, but you'll see there's several other options. You can send SMS, you can make an HTTPS call to call a REST API, you can even send a Slack message if you've got Slack integration configured. Once you've created your subscription, you'll receive an email from OCI asking you whether you're going to allow OCI to send you notifications. You'll have to subscribe, respond to that email. Once that's done, you can send a test email, just publishing a message, an arbitrary message, whatever you want to your notification list. And at this point, you're now ready to receive notifications, and we'll go on to the next step. In observability and manageability, or just search for rules, we'll go to events, rules, and we'll create a new rule. This new rule will use the service name of DataSafe, and we'll search for the event type security assessment drift from baseline or user assessment drift from baseline. We'll then associate that with a notification, choose our compartment for the notification, and pick the notification that we just created a few minutes ago. To test our email alert, all we have to do is create some type of drift. That could be create a new user, change a parameter, something that triggers the event, and then look to see if you get the email notification. That brings you up to date with where we are with DataSafe assessment now in phase 2 of the console migration, but there's still more to come. We're now working on the third and final phase of the migration, and later this year you will see us move the rest of the functionality from the legacy console. That will include sensitive data discovery, sensitive data masking, and activity auditing into the OCI native console. At this point, we will decommission the legacy console and everything will be in one place. At the same time, we will finish releasing the APIs. You have some APIs now that have been released for user and security assessment, but you'll see the full suite at the end of the third phase, and you'll have a much richer set of events to build notifications from. When can you expect to see this final phase complete? Well, we're on track to do this by the end of this calendar year. That's fantastic because it then opens us up for a lot more follow-on innovation. Things like increased emphasis on security policy management, building in operational user management. There's so much that we want to do with DataSafe. So stick with us for the next couple of months. We'll have this last phase of the console migration done. You'll get more functionality with that as well. And then throughout 2022, we can't wait to show you what we're going to do. Thanks for joining us for October Office Hours. For November, our plan is to talk about Zero Trust and the Oracle database. We hope to see you then.